Okay, welcome everyone to today's class. I wanted to call it the eternal spirit of the Jewish people. So I was flipping back and forth on like different titles for it, but they all at the end of the day capture the same essence of what I wanted to speak about today, which is the menorah, the candelabra. And just like I mentioned in the in the email, that basically, before the Star of David was the most popular, most significant way of identifying the Jewish people, right? The Jewish star, right? It was the menorah. It was the candelabra. The candelabra was, in fact, the symbol of the Jewish people, and it's the prized possession. It's the trophy, if you may, right? It's the trophy. And what did the Romans do when they sacked Jerusalem in the year 69, right? What happened? What did they do? What did Titus do? Where did he take the candelabra, the menorah? Titus Square, right? And in Titus Square over there in Rome, one can still see the menorah being dragged away as a symbol of defeat of the Jewish people. And why is that? Why is that the symbol that's captured? Because very validly so, the menorah is that symbol of the Jewish people. And it's the essence of really of beyond the Jewish people, the soul and the spirit, the triumphant, the victorious spirit that we have as a people, as individuals, that we have the power to go forward, to go past our obstacles, to be able to go to the next level, although it is very difficult. And what is so amazing is that after 2,000 years, Titus is gone. The Roman kingdom is gone, right? There are no Romans. There's no such thing, right? There's people who live in Rome, but there's no Romans. But there still is the Jewish people. We're still here after mighty empires have fallen throughout the ages. And each of our enemies reminds us who we are, right? And really that's the essence of, I believe, of anti-Semitism, is to remind us of our light. And then at the same time, they forget that we do have that light and that it happened to an empire before them and they're not here and they're trying it again. And if you just check throughout history, you just have a little bit of a fact check in history. You're like gone, Greeks, Persians, right? They're gone. They're all of them, right? And here we are. We're still here. So in terms of like prediction, I mean, if you have to bet on a horse, right? So you basically want to pick a horse, right? That's going to be, you're like, that horse has won quite a few times. That horse is kind of, it looked like they weren't going to make it. They were faster horses than that, but it's still been there. And so too, the eternal spirit of the Jewish people. We're here to stay. We're here forever. And despite what any of our enemies want to say and whatever they think that is going to happen, the spirit and the victory of the Jewish people is part and parcel of the menorah, of understanding the candelabra. So what is the candelabra? What is the menorah essentially about? So in this week's Parsha, Aaron, the high priest, gets the command to light the menorah. And our sages actually tell us what was going on over here in this exchange, right? Because at the end of last week's Torah portion, last week's Parsha, we learn about the gifts of the 12 leaders of the 12 tribes. And each of them brought their beautiful, unique, exquisite gift to the temple, to the Mishkan, to the, right? And there was Aaron, who was the from the tribe of Levi, and he's like, I'm not invited. I wasn't invited to the show, to the party. He felt slighted. And Hashem says to him, God tells him, don't worry. You've got something that is yours that is eternal. You have something that is going to be illuminated, and that's going to be eternal. And on that, actually, the famous commentary, the Ramban, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, right, says, well, what kind of a consolation is that? Because the temple was going to be destroyed, not once, but twice. So what does that mean? That your gift like stands out forever, the lighting of the candelabra. What was that exchange that the Midrash, right, is basically referring to? And the Ramban says that it's referring to the candles of Hanukkah, that the eternal candles that are lit, right, by the Maccabees, by the improbable victory of few versus many, is something that was drawn from what? From the menorah, which is why we light the menorah, and why the same Haftara, why the same there's a Torah portion that's read every week, and then there's the Haftara, the prophets that are read. So what's the Haftara of this week? It's the Rani v'Simchi, right? Bat Zion, the daughter of Zion, ki hine, right? Ba, and it's the prophecy of Zechariah chapter 4, and it's the same Haftara that is read on Hanukkah. So there's a direct correlation between the light of Hanukkah and the light of this week's energy, of this week's portion, right? And where we are in life, where we are in the world, drawing from this like deep conviction that the Maccabees basically drew from, and really that the light of Aaron didn't pause, wasn't stopped when the Romans trophied the menorah to Rome, right? It continued on because the spirit of it continued on. The spirit of the menorah continues on, because more than menorah being a physical structure, the menorah is a symbol. The menorah is a very, very deep symbol in how it's actually appears, and every detail of it is extremely unique, right? And there are the menorah itself, if we just get into just some of how it looked like. So it says like this, and I'm reading from, we have handouts today, so I'm just gonna I'm gonna read for whoever's got it. You could follow along with me. So it says over here in our verse, you shall make the menorah of pure gold. The menorah shall be made of hammered work. In other words, it's completely whole. It's a big block of gold, and then it's chiseled out. Its base and its shaft, its cups, its calyxes. I'm not sure what that is, but it must be these special ornaments, which were actually ornaments of apples of some sort. And petals should be one piece. 6 branches shall be from its side, 3 branches from its sides, 3 branches from one side of the menorah, and 3 branches from the other side of the menorah. On one branch there shall be 3 cups shaped like almond blossoms, right? On each one of the branches, there's 3 cups, right? And with all the ornaments of it. And then on the next one, there should also be these 3 cups shaped like almonds, and they're almost like very thin cups that elongate on top. They're wide on top, but they're very skinny on the bottom. And that's the shape that is on the menorah. And there's a certain amount of petals, and there's a certain amount of, so there's not going into the exact details of each part of the menorah, but the menorah had to be, yeah, we have a show and tell over here. That's actually perfect. So it looks like that, right? So actually that's the shape of the Maimonides, of the Rambam menorah. because we're unsure how those cups should actually appear. Should the cups appear upwards, right? Receiving, because that's how cups usually work, right? Cups don't work if you put them upside down, right? Cups work, right, by receiving. So why are these cups actually upside down? So in the Rambam's uh, that's actually a bit of an incorrect version of the shape of the menorah. That's the way the Romans wanted to make it look, because it would look more artistically pleasant to put on an arch. So that there's a misconception. A lot of people think that that's the shape of the menorah, but it's not. It is actually this. And that's the opinion of the great sages, because very much when our eyes are fixed on it, it actually gives us a very strong, energetic grounding by looking at the menorah. And in fact, in fact, meditating on the menorah, that thinking that each of the, exactly, it's each one of these are channels of the 6 sfirot, right? Of the 6 and then the 7 sfirot. They're all channels of the divine light that, that appears from the higher worlds down to us. And those cups, you know what? Let me just show that again, because those cups are really amazing. And those cups are facing downwards. And the reason is brought down in Chassidus, explaining that the whole purpose of the candelabra was for what? And this really gets us into the essence of it all. The whole purpose of the candelabra wasn't for light that is needed in the room in the temple in Jerusalem, right? It that wasn't the reason for it. The windows were open because the light of the menorah was meant to permeate outwards to the rest of the world. That's the purpose of the light, that the light over there is supposed to go and to reflect and to shine out to the rest of the world, to the entire world, which is why the 6 candles, the 3 and 3, have to face which candle? The middle candle. It faces the middle candle. So all 3, if their wicks would harmonize, right, towards that center column, that middle, that balance, right, of all of the sides. And that middle candle is the candle where the Shekhinah, where the divine light, the divine spirit of Hashem resides, right, and comes down. And that light was never turned off. In other words, that light was always on. And that light, the Cohen would start with that light, and then they would end with it. In other words, they would light the rest. So once the wick was finished, but there was another wick there, so we would start with that, and then he would go and light the others, and then the others would extinguish, but that light was still on. And then they would take that light and they would, so that light was constantly being drawn as the fuel, right, for all of the other branches, for all of those other parts. What do those parts represent? Okay, so those parts of the menorah represent many different things. So I'd like to just take a look at some beautiful explanations. First, the Alshech says that a person is like a menorah, ready to receive and illuminate with the help of Hashem through Torah, through the study of Torah and good deeds. It is said that even though he's made of coarse material, one should make themselves precious and important like gold, and be pure from all impurities, filth, and sin which one has committed. In other words, so it says you shall make for yourself a menorah. You should make for yourself, meaning you are the menorah. Like you may think I'm me. Yeah, you are a menorah. Like, what are you talking about? Do you know what I've done? Do you know where I come from? Do you know what I've it doesn't matter. You are a menorah, right? And so in the book of Zechariah, which is the Haftara of this week, it's a fascinating prophecy of Zechariah, which I don't know how many people really understand it or know about it, but this prophecy of Zechariah, just like as an aside, is basically the fifth one of his prophecies, that he sees the high priest, and his name was Yoshua. And what happened was that Yoshua was placed with two false prophets that were in at the time, right? At the time, there was false prophecy and there was true prophecy. And these two prophets were placed together with a high priest, right? By the Babylonians into the fire. And nothing happened. So these false prophets died, but the high priest remained, and only his clothing were charred, right? And Zechariah sees this in his vision, and he says, and our sages explain why that was. It says because his children were found guilty of certain things, of intermarriage is part of some things, and therefore it was as if it was his fault. And so Zechariah basically says to God, give him a white turban, put a white turban on his head, and that white turban is going to now atone exactly his being, right? That right. And so please sit. And yeah, no, move it, please. Okay. Welcome. I'm so glad you made it. Good. No, good. So Zechariah that sees this prophecy. Again, it's a prophecy that he sees that the people are in exile, right? That he sees that, right, in Babylonia, who's left over? This individual called Zerubavel. That was his name, and he was from the lineage of King David, and he was basically going to be the next in line, right? And so while things were happening, right, God was telling Zechariah, you know what? Just trust in something bigger than yourself. And that's the next part of the prophecy. The next part of the prophecy of Zechariah is that he sees the beautiful branches of the menorah. He sees the menorah, and he sees by the menorah, he sees two olive branches, and he sees oil, and he's sorry, before the oil, these branches are then giving over what? Olives, and those olives are being somehow pressed, right? And then they become oil, and then they go into the cups of the menorah, and then there's illumination, and that's the prophecy that Hashem gives to Zechariah. It's a beautiful prophecy, again, that we read when we read on Hanukkah. And so at the end of this prophecy, God says to Zechariah, not by might nor by power, but my spirit, says Hashem. One of the most powerful words and prophecies ever, right? Not just because it sounds nice and it's like really powerful. I remember one Hanukkah, I was lecturing here in Ascent to a group of experts from Raphael, that create military equipment in Israel, right? They're these engineers that are creating, all of these systems. So they came for a lecture on, about Hanukkah. So I remember I was mentioning this, yes, we're creating these weapons, but what does the prophet really say? Obviously, we have to have the defense that needs to be there. There's no question about that. But where's the deeper defense? Where's the greatest defense? Who's the greatest defender of Israel? Who's the one? Hashem. Not right. And that's what the prophet says. The prophet says what? Not by might nor by power, but my spirit, says Hashem. And time after time, empire after empire, generation after generation, we're reminded of this. We're reminded that it's not the strong, mighty, it's not the few improbable victors. There's something way stronger in the equation over here. So just to bring this back to the historical context of what Zechariah is actually talking about, right? It's not a vacuum of some sort. What was happening over here is that the Jewish people are in exile in these 70 years, right? And there's a leader that can now take over, and his name is Zerubavel. So now, who's now the leader or the king of Persia at the time? Sorry, not Babylon. Persia at the time. It was Darius, King Darius, who many say was the son of Esther from the story of the Megillah. So now we have a Jewish king that is the emperor of the world, essentially. So now when Ezra and Nehemiah, who are now these leaders there in the diaspora in Babylonia, come about, and there's Zerubavel, right? That's able to take over. So we have a leader, we have like the Mashiach, we have the king, because it's about having the king of David. It's not just to have a location or the temple. We want the kingdom of David, so they had him, Zerubavel, and that's the prophecy of Zechariah. God is telling Zechariah that what could happen and what actually did happen doesn't have to be so hard. It could be so simple, just like illuminating a candelabra, the menorah. Just go with the flow, like going with because that's basically where it was coming from. It was coming from these branches that had olives on them that were just becoming crushed, and the crushing wasn't even felt, and it became oil, and it became light. And that's it. And why don't we choose that? Why don't we want that? That's what God says that's what Zechariah prophesies. That's what we read on Hanukkah. We're like, I do want that. I do want Hanukkah all year long. I do want to be connected to my light. I do want, right, to have God, right, in my life, because that's really what that means, right? It's like what the Al-Shach says, like the Torah says, make for yourself, or make of yourself a candelabra. That's what he was basically saying. So there's we very often don't want to assume that light. So we'd rather take the hard road. We'd rather prove ourselves. And this is like very often found by men, like, even though that but it doesn't matter, we're going to just do it, and just like head to head, and why, you know what I'm saying? Like, there could be another way and another approach, an approach of the menorah, basically, what it symbolizes and how it actually works. And how it actually works is that it symbolizes unity. It symbolizes there's paradoxes. There's the 6 branches, there's the 7 branches, but they're all very different. They're all different. One is chesed, one is gevura, one is tiferet, one is netzach, hod, yesod, mal. They're all different. We're all, right? We're all very different. But within that difference, there's one menorah that holds them all. That there's as well a part of us that's basically harnessed from one pure chunk of gold. It's like that is able to hold the paradoxes, right, of Am Yisrael, right, of the world, which means basically if we're able to hold paradoxes as the Jewish people, we're able to hold paradoxes in the world, because there's the 7 types of the Jewish people, and then they became 70, it says, when we came into Mitzrayim, when we went into Egypt, and then we became, right, and then that goes to the 70 nations, right, because that light is something that permeates. So the light in the temple, the light of the menorah, is really the light that permeates, is the light that fixes. It's the light of the world, basically. That's really what it is, the menorah. And it's very interesting because it says that Moshe did not even know how to make the menorah. It says all of the others, he had intuition, he had Ruach HaKodesh, he had Betzalel to help him out. But the menorah, it was one of 3 things that Moshe didn't know what to do, right? And he says, what do I do? So it says God, Hashem, showed him the menorah made out of fire from heaven. He says, make it like this. It's got to look like that. And Moshe saw that fire, right, of the menorah. Moshe, the great leader, saw that fire, and he translated it as a physical menorah. It was the fire that literally he saw from heaven, from Hashem. That's what he saw. That's what he communicated. That's what he created. And the Baal Shem Tov says, really, why did Moshe not know this? And why was it even fair of God to say, make the menorah? If he knew that Moshe didn't know how to make the menorah, why would that work? Like, why, right? And why didn't Moshe know about it? So the Baal Shem Tov says, the reason is because everything really comes from Hashem. Everything comes from the infinite giver in a way that we don't understand that source, right? And if we try to understand or think that we understand that source, we're like, well, then we're not really understanding that source. And so the only one of the kelim, of the vessels of the temple, that Moshe did not know, had sort of a difficult time in understanding, that's like the simple way of putting it. The Baal Shem Tov says, no, it's not that he had a difficult way of understanding it. It had nothing to do with his intelligence, it's just like, that is the menorah. The menorah is just an item. It's the perfect expression of just the way the infinity, right, of Hashem comes into our existence, into our world. So that's not something that we could readily understand, but then it translates into the middle candle. And then the middle candle receives from the 6, and then it goes out, and it goes out, and it goes out. But it all receives from where? From that place. And that is ruchi, that is my spirit. Lo bechayil velo bekoach ki im beruchi amar Hashem tzvakot. Right? Not through mighty warfare, and not through this, right? It's through my ruchi, which is actually the letters ruach yud, the spirit of yud. But it doesn't. But what does it mean, ruchi? My spirit. It should have says ki im beruchachem, with your spirit, right? And the answer is that it's not our spirit, it's Hashem's spirit that we're really tapping into. Ruchi is, we're tapping into Hashem's spirit when we're facing the middle candle. The middle candle is the place of, this is the essence of who we are. And it's not something that one can understand, that one can make sense of. But it's a place very, very deep and very, very strong. And however secular one is, and however it doesn't make a difference, because that spirit is felt equally, right, by all Jews, right? And that's that fierceness, that what we call it's that place of Mesiras Nefesh, the place of self-sacrifice, that one would even give themselves over to, right, to Hashem. And we think about in this war of what's going on now. And just a week and a half ago, there was that heroic capture of the 4 hostages from Gaza. And one of those incredible, angels, literally, they all were ready to, they're obviously very trained, and they know what they're doing. Like, don't mess, that's for sure. But at the same time, there's a spirit of self-sacrifice. And this tzaddik, this Arnon, right, did that, right? Going into the fire for someone else. He had a family. And all of them, and all of those soldiers that are there on the front lines like that. Just this week, another like 8. Right? I don't want to depress any, it's so hard. But we're reminded again in this week's Parsha, and that's the energy. It's, yes, we could look at it as it's hard and it's sad. At the same time, these people are the greatest people of the generation, and their souls and where they go to, is the most elevated place in paradise, by Hashem's throne. But again, that place is not something that one has to give up their life for necessarily, right? The Lubavitcher Rebbe says that giving up your self-sacrifice means giving up your will for something, for yourself, right? We have selfish ego wills that were like, I need to do this, and I'm entrenched in this. I'm stuck in this. I cannot not do this. Don't make me not do this. Or don't make me do this. And when we switch that will a little bit and we're like, okay, I think I'm going to try to look at that. That's self-sacrifice. But where does that self-sacrifice come from? It comes from that, what we call pintala yid, that ruach, ruchi is ruach yid, the ruach of the yud, which is a ruach of the yid. Ruchi, the ruach of the yud, is that spirit which is in the essence.
There's a question regarding this hostage. I have a bit of a, I'm really upset about it in a sense. I'm happy about it.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, this hero soldier had 2 children. And what upset me is that one of the people who was saved, has gone out and announced to everyone to go and demonstrate against the government. And it really upsets me that such a hero he's got 2 children who are not going to have this essence of a person who lives life. Saving someone like that who's against people and encouraging division. Right.
I hear you. It's not first of all, we don't know what this person, we have no clue what this person went through. And psychologically, they are definitely extremely warped, we could say the least, psychologically. And what is more warping is that there are people who use that warping to create their own warped way of getting rid of the thing that they feel should be gotten rid of. So that's very sad, and that's really just perpetuating the problem, because the solution is this incredible, self-sacrifice and unity, because you could only have like, if one feels different than someone else, right? There's no unity. Why would I want to do something for them? And that's the way it is in the world, in the non-Jewish world, I would say, for each other, right? Generally, right? But for the Jewish people, it's like all of a sudden, I don't even know you, and I don't even like, but still there's this like level of connection. What is that? What is, because it's that spirit of Hashem that's in the soul, in the neshama of who we are, right? And that's the Haftara. That's what we read this week. Roni v'simchi, right? That Bat Zion, the daughter of Zion, that the daughter of Zion, what is the daughter of Zion? That it's a level sometimes of a level of daughter of not knowing, because there's 3 levels of feminine that Kabbalah and Chassidut explain. There's the feminine in the form of the daughter, of the wife, or sometimes sister, right? And mother. And we could say the highest dimension is, that level of more of the mother, the right, imi, and then achoti, rayati, and then biti. So the daughter basically receives, she's very happy to just like receive like the credit card or whatever it is, and just go shot, do what you need, and that's that. So what is the Haftarah of this week? We're all the daughters of Hashem. That means we have Hashem's credit card. Like, really?
I don't see it in the bank.
Because you don't feel that you're the actual daughter, his daughter. No, it's there, and it will cause things to be there. Because if we really believe that we are the daughters of Hashem, right? That means that you're light. It's like that prophecy of Zechariah. You are light. You have these olives, and they get squeezed. You need something, it will happen. You need the illuminate, it will happen. But believe it, think it, become it. Right? Because when you become it, then, like the Al-Shech says, then we are that light, right? That's the prophecy of Zechariah. And basically that's what happened, because Darius completely funded the second temple, the building of it, and even all of the communal sacrifice and everything like that in the temple were all subsidized by taxations. So everything was just like on the house. Big Daddy, literally Darius was like, the leaders of Nehemiah, Ezra and Nehemiah would go over and they would say, we need this much money. Sure. Greatest superpower of the world. It's like, let's open the Federal Reserve for you. Yeah. He was, they say, no. Herod expanded the second temple towards the end of the second temple time, right? We're talking about the beginning of the second temple, right? Second temple was 420 years. Yes, his mother was Esther, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So everything could happen. So we call it, events or things happening. If we're connected to Hashem, it will happen. It's like that's the prophecy. It will happen, because that's the spirit. So can we embrace that? Can we live that? Or do we want to like go back to like immature, discord and, and blame and shame and division, right? And hate? Like, is that it? And the menorah is this symbol of unity. It's a symbol of opportunity. It's a symbol of connection, of realignment, with our souls. That's really what it is. Realignment with our souls and our connection to the entire world, every single person, every single human being, right? That's the exactly. And it all came down from that light in the temple going outwards. And what is happening now is that there's so much light that is coming down into the world. And it's the feeling of a lot of like, it's not easy, right? But we're expanding, right? Hashem is expanding us to embrace our light, and to say, I don't know if I can't do this. I can't work through this. I've tried, and yes, you're just a step away. It's just taking the next step. That's it. That's self-sacrifice. That's Mesiras Nefesh. Just taking that next brave step. And with Hashem, with God, that's there. And seeing, right? Having that awareness that God is in the now. God is like right now with me. God is literally here. God is here. I'm feeling uncomfortable. I'm feeling pain. God is here too. I'm nervous. God is in that. I'm anxious. God is in that. I'm sad. God is right there.
That's actually creating a dear Hashem.
It is totally. God doesn't need, God doesn't just stay in the Ritz Carlton and like the great, the resort plus of every, like, no, I only stay there. God actually Hashem loves to come to like some farmer's house, some rural, rustic, it's like getting out there, getting the chickens are there and, brushing away leaves and the trees are, and it's like, and, there's a little bit of yelling, there's a little bit of stuff coming, but it's like, but there's the simplicity and the sincerity of heart that is there, and the willingness to learn and the willingness to even be wrong, because that's where Hashem is. He's even with me when I fall, because he didn't make me perfect. It's like, again, like such beautiful words in the Alshech. Vasita, right? Menorat Zahav. Vasita, you make for yourself a Menorat Zahav. You are that Menorat Zahav. You may feel like, I don't know what, like some, big stone off some cliff in the middle of who knows what. Yeah, that's me, man. What candelabra are you seeing? But like, no, little by little, like I'm able to see through, and you see maybe that stone is not as rough as it is. Maybe it looks like, but when we see ourselves as that's when it really changes. When we're able to see our own light, our own candle out, which is God's light, Kim Beruchi. And when we have people like that walking around in the world, then we have nothing but goodness that comes down into the world, right? When there's respect for each other, when their characteristic traits are of a fine caliber, right? When there's mutual respect, when there's communication, when there's openness, when there's healthy disagreements. So then each branch could remain their branch, but yet we're all connected to a bigger branch. So the looking beyond my limited branch is only because I could see there's something greater, but that something greater then really comes from the nullification of where I am drawing it all from. And those cups over there on the candelabra are about, it's about taking that light, but then also not just keeping it, and just receiving it, but it's doing something with it and being in service with it for others, right? So the cups are actually taking like that, but they're actually facing down, because we really want to not just hold on to the light, because then it would say like, great, what's next? But if you're able to give that light, if you're able to illuminate that and give that to others, then that light becomes stronger, and then that light continues on and on and on and on. And that's why those cups on the menorah are facing downwards, because it's not about retaining the light for oneself. It's like, oh, yay, you know, I'm so warm over here. It's so great, so cozy for me. Good for me. I'm having like a great, you know, I'm a great tzaddik, like I'm a great you know, I'm sitting over. There's something about that that is definitely holding up and doing a lot for the world. No question about that. I'm not saying, but when there's just staying in one's confines and not thinking about, I can actually ask how someone else is doing. I can teach someone else. I can bring someone else a little closer. I could give them an example, a positive example of role. I could actually do that and not just think about myself. That's the menorah. And that's powerful, because that's something that's something that then continues and ripples off into others, you know, and such incredible people that, you know, we mentioned, you know, such as Arnon and all these holy soldiers, you know, throughout these 8 months. You know, it's sadness, there's no question about that, but at the same time they remind us, and they're very happy right now. They're like very like, they're like in, you know, they're in the highest place, right? They're very happy, but we're sad, but they remind us of, you know what, this is what you are. You're not some demonstrator that's just like hacking the chinik, like just wasting time with nothing productive, instead of just like getting, you know, making chaos or making a ruckus. In other words, like, let's have dialogue. Let's actually work on something. And I know politics is just, but it's not politics. It really is about like, how do we solve things? Because the leaders right now, the leaders are not going to, I mean, they're there and that's who we have to deal with, but it's really us. You know, it's us. It's not any political system. It's not any political, and it's just getting more and more out of control, right? You know, around the world, you know, things are just like the whole leadership, because we live in a society now that everyone is a leader and everyone is an influencer and everyone is a this and everyone, if you're not this, then you're not that. And it's all like, are you for real? How much time have you actually spent learning? How much time have you actually been doing this kind of profession before you're like, you know, spewing out like, you know, being like the top expert in everything before even, you know, being an apprentice, which is so important. So we live in a time that everything needs to be so fast and so quick and so instant and so this. It's where there isn't like just the presence of like, let's like be here, let's listen, let's try to like, you know, have dialogue with each other instead of, you know, trying to change the other. But I'm preaching to the choir over here, because all of us, all of you are, you know, doing this, and that's what we have to keep on doing. And that's the strength that we have over here from the Parsha, from every single week. There's that special energy that kind of like reminds us of, you know, definitely been tough, you know, not going to you know, lie about that. But to know that we have strength, you know, that we, you know, that this is also, God is exactly here in that turmoil. And that's where the light is able to shine as well, because the light shines everywhere. So maybe let's finish off, if that's okay, with an intention, a collective intention for all of us. So if you guys have a minute, let's take a deep breath in and release. Trying to grab an intention. Where the power of the intention is like that letter Yud, which is ethereal, but it's being grabbed from Hashem. And it's his inspiration that gives us the ability to do. Hu anoten lecha koach lasot chayim. He gives you strength to do chayim. Lo bechayil velo bekoach ki im beruchi. But if you try to do it with your own strength, God says, no. Ki im beruchi, with my ruach yud, with the spirit of the letter yud, the middle candle. That from there the Shekhinah comes down l'chol ba'ei olam, for the entire world to know that the Shekhinah resides in Israel. And that Shekhinah resides within us, within our hearts, within our minds, within our bodies, within our faults, within our successes. All 7 branches illuminate. And just know, when you're illuminating yourself, you're illuminating the world. And just like in the prophecy of Zechariah, where the branches and the olives turned into oil, which went into the flasks of the menorah and were lit and illuminated, and light shone so brightly. And the 2 branches correspond to the king and to the high priest we have within us. And then that light is able to shine to the rest of the world. But it could be with ease and flow. It doesn't have to be hard. God doesn't want to give it to us hard. I choose light. I choose trust. Choose letting go. Choose allowing Hashem to work through me, and for myself to be a candelabra, a menorah. I choose to work on myself to be that candelabra. I am that menorah. Pure gold. The most precious artifact in the entire world. I am that menorah. Let our world shine with that light. What would happen if it did? Even the resistance to it is also God, and allowing that, knowing that God is also in my own objection to my own light, and to accept that and make that okay. It's all part of the process of making. We're all a work in progress. So if you had one wish, or even more, what would it be? For your menorah, for you to assume that. And you can think big. And take that in with your heart and feel that in your heart. And feel the emotion of that. And that already happening. And that image already being there. And feeling the joy of when that is accomplished. That is now you. All right. I'm going to internalize that and bring that in to the now. All right, my friends. So I want to wish you all a beautiful Shabbat, a beautiful week. May we all be safe, sound, happy, illuminated. Allow ourselves to recognize that we're here, that we're being upgraded, and upgrades are not always easy. You know, not easy until you get to the first class, but we're getting there. All right, my friends, many blessings. Wishing you a beautiful Shabbat. Thank you all for being here. Shabbat Shalom.